Well, welcome back, everybody, to Music Talk. I'm Dave.
I'm Mike.
And this week, we're checking out a guy, which when I first saw it, I didn't know how to pronounce his name. But when I listened to an interview by him, he said his name was Anthony Gomes.
Gomes.
That's how he's pronouncing it.
Okay.
The album's called High Voltage Blues, right? Pretty cool looking cover, right? It's got him playing his flying V with lightning. Now, the thing that really caught me right off the bat was high voltage, right? High voltage with the lightning bolt. So I started thinking, there's another album called High Voltage with a lightning bolt and a guitar player, and it's AC/DC's High Voltage.
Yep.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
But it's got Angus Young there.
Yep.
With the lightning bolt. Kind of looks really familiar, doesn't it? So not that matters. Still pretty cool album cover. I like the way he's posing on there with the lightning. That's pretty neat. So then you go inside, you got all the lyrics. There he is, giving you his face, right? You got to have the rock and roll face. There you are. You got another pose with him and his flying V. Still all the words, another face for you, right? That's the face where he's gonna bend that one, right? Got the bend face. The smell the skunk face.
Yep.
Right, there he is on the back with all the people he's thinking and players on the record. Inside the cover, he's got this, just kind of chilling with it. The back of the cover, he's got another cool pose there, stomping it out, right? Got all the tracks on there, black and white. Love that, because that's easy to read. And the CD, he's got another pose on there for you. So he's posing all over, right? So pretty cool album cover. I mean, I don't really like much when they show them just their picture on the front, but this one's cool. Reminds me of the AC/DC one. Thought it was pretty neat. I don't know if you know much about Anthony Gomes, but he's been around for a while. I mean, I think he's been out since early 2000s.
Yeah, I think he's been around for a while. I mean, he had pretty good lineup on this album too. He had Ray Luzier on drums on some of the tracks, and you know,
Billy Sheehan on bass.
Which I mean, okay, whoops, sorry about that.
Most of the stuff he did early in his career, I believe, was independent label maybe or something. But this album was on Rat Pack, so he got hooked up by Rat Pack. And what happened was during the COVID stuff and the lockdown, the guy from Rat Pack named Joe O'Brien was listening to Gary Moore videos. And then Anthony Gomes' video popped up and he watched it. And he's like, wow, we got to check this guy out. So anyway, he contacts him and asks him if he wanted to come over and be on Rat Pack. So he said, sure. So they went in there and he's like, well, let's go back into your collection and get some of your old songs, add some new songs, re-record everything, put it out, and let's get you out there. So that's kind of how this came. It's almost like a greatest hits album, really. Yeah. Because you got 15 songs. Originally, the album had 12 songs, but this one's extended and they added an extra 3.
Two of them were extensions of songs previously on the album. Well, one of them is. And
Darkest Before the Dawn. He's actually got 2 versions of it. One's extended, which is really only about a minute longer. It's not that much longer. But anyway, he's the typical blues guy. He came up listening to all the greats, BB, Jimmy, Aerosmith, Zeppelin, ZZ Top, you name it. But yeah, that's just, I don't know too much about the guy. I just kind of listened to an interview or two with him and he was talking a little bit about it. So, we'll go into the songs real quick and talk about it. First song, we got Billy Sheehan and Ray, what'd you say, Luzier? How do you say his last name?
Luzier.
Yeah. No, he's from Korn, right?
Yeah,
drummer for Korn. So they're on 5 songs on here together, him and Billy, and then Anthony Gomes. So the first song starts out Painted Horse. It's a pretty good rocker. It starts acknowledging all the greats.
Yeah.
When I told you to listen to this song, I told you that there was one part of this song I'm going to hate. Do you know what part of this song is that I couldn't stand?
I had forgotten you had said that, but I got to tell you, of all the songs on this CD, this album, this was the one track that I
didn't care for.
Had trouble getting all the way through.
So I mean, it starts out pretty good. You got Billy and you got Ray, so you got a great rhythm section, right?
Yep.
And the guitar's pretty good. It's just the words, man. You know, I didn't really dig the words too much. It's one that he recorded with an old band, New Soul Cowboys or something. It's kind of country sounding to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I got one song down here. Yeah. That really is country.
but the part that I hated was the bang, 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 giddy up, bang, bang. Oh my gosh, dude. When I heard
Oh,
that part, I'm like, my gosh, man. Really?
that Will Smith thing he did in the Wild Wild West. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And that's
it
what
just,
popped into my head. I was like, and I got to tell you, the whole song was very cliche to me. There
yeah,
wasn't a thing in that song that hasn't been done 100 times before.
I know. And that's what was bothering me so much about it. And then it got to that bang, bang thing. And I was like, oh, geez. And I mean, he's talking about Kiss the Sky and, hanging with the man in black and, just naming stuff. I just didn't dig it.
Right.
It's a shame because I thought it was going to be a kicking song, but then the words just killed it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have liked it if the words were different, but the words killed that one. So I just kind of went, whatever, right?
Right.
And then we get to number 2, fur covered handcuffs. Okay. So right off the bat, it's going to sound like ZZ Top. And he actually even made a reference that he was trying to do a ZZ Top type song, kind of joking around a little bit. They wanted to do a ZZ Top sounding song, came up with this about a couple wanting to spice up their sex life or whatever it is they're trying to do. So she ordered some fur covered handcuffs. Now, it kind of has a ZZ Top sound. To me, it sounded like AC/DC. I mean, if you
Yeah.
would have put Brian Johnson singing this, it would have been straight AC/DC.
Yeah, I could see that. I leaned more towards the ZZ Top side of it, and there's one other song on here that really leaned towards ZZ Top too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I got to tell you, after getting through about 4 or 5 of the songs, I started getting, and I actually wrote down pretty suspect in subject matter lyrically, and what I wound up coming to the conclusion of is that these guys, this guy here is just he's leaning towards the biker scenario, and there's nothing wrong with that, but
No.
you know, it just I think that they should. I don't know if they've got a rating on the album or not, but I think they should have put a little something on there. Got a
Yeah.
little bit of a mature audience.
Yeah, I guess. I just thought the lyrics were kind of amateur,
Yeah,
childish.
well, that too.
But
That too.
yeah.
But to me, that's why I was saying it's just a little subject and some of the matter.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
uh,
this
there-
song, I mean, I did like the driving bass it had. I like the music. I really dig the song. I just didn't care for the words that much again,
yeah.
you know. But I thought the song was good. Then we get to number 3, which is bluesified. So you got a standard blues, 8 bar, starts with the turnaround, typical. Boom, boom, bam, 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 I mean, nothing really different on this one, but it's a good blues rock song.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
put down okay, old school.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, you're a blues guy, you got to have this song in there, right? So I'm not gonna. I don't. I thought it started getting better. The record's starting to get a little better.
Yeah,
You
to
know?
me it did. Yeah,
Yeah. So then we get to number 4, which we have Billy and Ray again. Billy on bass, Ray on drums, and this is Born to Ride, right?
Yep.
Starts out reminding me of Rainbow's self-portrait off of their Richie Blackmore's Rainbow album.
right.
That riff was like almost identical to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I dig it. I love Rainbow. If you're going to pop a lick, why not take a Blackmore lick and roll with it, right? So,
Yeah.
but as soon as I heard it, I was like, dang, man, that's Rainbow right there. But anyways, but I think it's a good song, and the words were kind of decent on this one, right? They were a little more, they weren't so silly,
Yeah,
It's a
it's good
driving
driving.
song, and this is where you're talking about biker songs, right?
A good driving song, good driving rocker. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I like the fact too, it's in a 6/8
Yeah.
tempo, You know, I mean, time signature.
Yeah.
It did change it up a little bit, which is one thing that I noticed through this whole album is that it was pretty much sounding the same all the way through, you know, it's
Yeah.
because his guitar never changed.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to talk about that a little later too. But yeah, I mean, the only thing that started that really changes from song to song is the rhythm section.
Right.
Right. So you go from Billy and Ray to, which I don't know who played on the rest of them. He's got 3 or 4 drummers and 3 or 4 bass players, but they don't tell you who played on what.
Yeah.
Although I thought they were all good, you could definitely tell when they were switching to a different rhythm section, you know? I don't think they were lacking at any point on here for rhythm section.
Right.
The bass and drums worked well together. Drums were a little bit different sounding, so I like that a little bit. But the songs had the same kind of tempo, like you're talking about. Wasn't a whole lot of dynamics, right?
It was too much of the same formula as far as putting it together. And you know, that's one thing I'll hand ZZ Top, for example. Whenever they put an album together, I mean, granted, it's just 3 of them, but they've got a way of changing things up. I don't know if it's that they're putting effects on things or something or what, but I don't get bored with listening to the album, you know.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's not really like Frank Beard's changing his drum sound. It's more like Billy Gibbons is just giving you different tones, you know, and
different approaches and stuff.
Yeah, it's all in, you know, what he's doing, I think. So
yeah. But I don't know, you know, I gotta say that once I got into the album a little bit, again, lyrically, I was
kind of tuning out.
Kind of tuning it out because it was pretty elementary and stuff in areas. And it was, you know, pretty rough, but I don't know.
I think that's kind of the downside of this record is that it's kind of like a greatest hits, right? So you don't really have the album format. You just took a bunch of his songs and you threw them together and you put it on a record. So it's not, you know, it's not like following a typical album format, which is why you're not getting a whole lot of differences, I believe. Like if we were to listen to the album that, I don't know, Painted Horse came off of, maybe they had a format where it was album type, you know?
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
So, and I think that hurt it a little bit for me, this record. But again, I'm still not hating it yet. You know, I'm not hating the record. It's just the words were a little too, you know, wacky for me, but the music is good. You know, then we get to number 5. It's Peace, Love, and Loud Guitars. You know, and this one here, he was talking about at the time, he wanted to, you know, have everybody to come together and unity and all that, but he didn't want to do it in a flower child way. So they said, what way can I do it? Well, we'll just crank the guitars up to 11, stick it out there and just rock it and get everybody to just get together and scream and yell. And this is definitely a stadium song. You got the audience, you know, yelling back on the call and response, you know, it's again, gang vocally a little bit for me. But still, I can see him standing there in front of thousands of people and yelling at, you know, peace, love, you know, and they're all like, you know, so I could see it happening. And it's a decent song, you know, it's not really that bad of a song. Thought it was all right.
Yeah. It definitely, though, I mean, all the way through, there's definitely this 3-piece Texas blues thing happening.
Yeah.
And you know, I read some things about the references to, you know, Hendrix or whatever, and I'm thinking to myself, well, in order to accomplish that, you're going to have to find drummers that are capable of going to a jazz side of things and approaching things differently than looking at it like a rock and roll setup. Look at it like Mitch Mitchell was. I mean, he was a master of that, you know.
I mean, he could fill in when you only have 3 people on stage.
Well, that he was able to play things along with Jimmy And of course, too, you're looking at the fact though that back in that time, I mean, even when he was using double bass drum, the double bass drum wasn't about, sitting there just doing two bars of just bass drum fill, I mean,
Yeah.
It was there to add to the rudimental side of things that he was using between his hands and his feet, which is cool. And a lot of drummers today are doing that, but when you approach it as a straightforward rock thing, then what you get is a 3-piece rock band attempting blues.
Right.
And take the Allman Brothers, for example, J-Mo. And, I mean, those guys themselves, they were jazz drummers, both of them,
Right.
I mean, and that's why you had things like Whipping Post, you had,
That's right.
I mean, One Way Out, you listen to that. That is not your typical drum beat, that's
right. Exactly.
pretty much jazz, I mean.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I think that's what gets lost in the translation.
Yeah, it does.
The guy has a good voice. Now, I got to say, I was getting tired of it after about 6 songs, but
yeah,
I mean, it sounds the same. But he does have a good voice, but he needs somebody in there to break it up with him.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get to number 6, and this is I Believe. And this one here, he said they were trying to figure out a way to do a nasty groove with a melodic chorus, which was a challenge to him. And then, it was supposed to be on the Peace and Love album, but it didn't make it on there. But he said this one, he was trying to attempt to do a Mutt Lange sounding song. So, I mean, I thought it had a rockin' verse, and then it had this really sweet chorus, but then it got to this church part, right?
Yeah.
And then the church part, which was okay, but then out of the church part, he does this really weird, guitar run, and it brings you back to the chorus. It was just a really weird song to me.
Yeah.
I thought it was just kind of like a put together, like we have this piece, and then let's throw this in there, and then kind of clip. There it is, So I mean, it was okay though, it wasn't bad. So of the new songs on the record, these were the 3: Fur Covered Handcuffs, Bluesified, Fur Covered Handcuffs. I can't even get that out. Bluesified, and then this one, I Believe. Those were the 3 new songs. The rest of them are all done on other records.
Right.
So now we get to number 7, Red-Handed Blues, right? Those good words are kind of funny on this one, but again, it's back to where I'm saying it's childish in a way. To me, I don't know.
I thought it was a little off color when he's talking about he got caught sticking $1 down in the preacher's daughter's
G-string. Yeah, I know.
I was like, it's one thing to talk about putting a buck in a dancer's G-string. I'm okay with that. And it's not the fact that the father was a pastor or anything.
Right.
One thing that they talked about, they put the daughter in there. Okay. Yeah. So automatically I go to underage,
Well, I don't know that that's so much. It's, to me, I took it as, you're going to have to explain this to the preacher. Oh, I'll explain to the preacher. It's his daughter that was stripping,
Right,
so
right.
Whatever.
Yeah. But
I didn't really think of it as underage, but
it just raised that little thought in the back of my mind. I'm like, this is something that you could have to sit down and explain to an interviewer.
you might. Yeah, I kind of read through it and I'm like, but I thought it was a cool riff. It was a good blues rock riff, and then at the end it got to the woes, and I was like, not the woes, the whoa, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but it was still a catchy chorus. As far as bad, as not as bad, but as much as I disliked his lyrics, it was still a catchy chorus.
Yeah.
And
I noticed he's using one of those octave things on his guitar too.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. There was about 3 or 4 songs I heard it on, which is cool sounding,
Yeah.
You can go for it. But
then we get to number 8, and this one's Turn It Up. And this one, I mean, I really like the bass growl this song has. There's a couple of parts where, I mean, it was really growling at you. You could tell it was a humbucking bass because of the way it had that heavy growl. And, you know, but again, he starts throwing all these blues godfathers names in there, right? You know, Muddy Waters and, you know, BB King, Buddy Guy. It's like, come on, man. You know, like a
Yeah.
problem with the lyrics once again for me, you
Yeah.
know. So decent song though. Then we get to number 9, Blues in the First Degree, another standard blues song. To me, it was it was empty. It needed an organ. There were a lot of areas where it was just a drummer playing by himself. And I just needed, you needed like a Hammond in the background or something growling through that, you know? If he would have had an organ in this song would have been 100 times better. So I don't know. It was just missing something for me. Almost like they just forgot to go back and put something else in. I don't know.
Well, I felt like they were kind of going after the ZZ Top um, blue jean blues type thing, you know,
Yeah.
a little bit, but it didn't have that configuration, which, by the way, back to I Believe, that's one that I felt like really
ZZ Top.
was a ZZ Top thing, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, talk about this 12 bar. I got that feeling like they were looking for something to emulate the blue jean blues thing,
Yeah.
but didn't quite make it there, you know.
Yeah.
Or Gravity, for example, by what's his name, you know, it kind of reminded me of that too, but they just didn't know how to play with empty space.
Yeah. Right. Because it was so hollow there for a while, right? It just needed something. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it needed some more effects on the drums. Maybe.
I think you're right. It just needed it needed it needed an organ in the back, just growling on the low octave,
For sure.
just carrying that, not even playing rhythmically or anything, just
Something humming in the back. Yeah.
right.
It would have been nice. It would have made that song 100 times better, which I thought it was a decent song.
It is.
It's just, you know. So then we get to number 10. This is where the record starts to get really wacky for me, except for one song. But this one, it's almost like the thing took a whole turn here.
Country rock tune, man.
It went straight country after this point, right? So now we're at Hell in Half of Georgia. It's a typical standard song. To me, it kind of reminded me of almost like a taking care of business, sort of like a you know. It is definitely a country rock. You had the piano, a little feetish sounding, right? You know, but it was okay. This was probably of all the songs, this one I really didn't care much for. I mean, there's a couple I didn't really love, but this one I just kind of like, it's just typical song, you know, like a filler to me. That one was, even though I thought Hell in Half of Georgia knows that you've been running around with me. It's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool line, right?
Yeah.
But the song that I didn't care much for the music had a pretty good lyric line in it. So
Yeah. But I mean, the thing that stuck out to me was it's definitely a country rock tune. It was released about 30 years too late.
Yeah.
It's been released back in the 70s, you know, early 80s. You know, and you could have had a band like 38 Special or somebody like that doing it.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's true. I mean, you could have, if it would have been put out in the 80s, 70s, 80s, early 80s, it probably would have been a much better song.
Yeah. The Darkest Before Dawn to me was just an R&B blues ballad, you know, it just reminded me,
which is the next one.
like the Box Tops or whatever doing a ballad, you know.
But you know, the thing about this song is, you know, it was standard blues, slow blues, had great vocal work, great strings in it. You had two ladies on here, Becca Bramlett and Wendy Moten, which both of them are very accomplished singers.
Well, Bramlett is a name that goes back to Delaney and Bonnie.
Delaney and Bonnie, correct. Which we've talked about her on another record, and I don't even remember which one.
Yeah, I know.
I couldn't remember. It may have been Timothy B. Smith or somebody.
Yeah,
but and then Wendy Moten is another big time singer, kind of an R&B. But when them two girls were singing on there, man, it reminded me a lot of Ray Charles backup vocals.
Right,
is what I was hearing. But the thing about this song that I liked the most was this was his best tone that he had on a guitar solo. His tone on this one was sweet. It was that's what he should have been doing more, I think, as far as his guitar soloing. That
Yeah.
tone was right on the money, man. I don't know why he didn't do more of that, but man, I love that solo.
Probably a different guitar.
Maybe. I don't know what he did differently, but man, I tell you, it was like Joe Bonamassa tone at some points, you know.
Yep.
But one of my that was my favorite song on the record, right?
Mm-hmm.
So number 12 we get to is Blues Child, and man, I swear it reminded me of Travis Tritt.
Well, that I got Taste of Deep Purple in there, you know.
I felt a little bit of that too. Yeah. But I thought the solo was out of place on this one. It was a really weird solo for the song. It didn't fit to me, which it happens in a couple of his songs. And I'm going to talk about that at the wrap up. So,
yeah,
but it
but you
was a
know,
decent.
I mean, these, like you say, these are songs that they grabbed and put together, and threw on the album. You know, they probably remixed them and stuff like that. But
They actually
I think a lot,
re-recorded them. So
did they?
yeah, he
Okay.
said they re-recorded every one of them, but
Well,
I don't
then
know.
I can fault the engineer and production just as much as I can the players at the, because
That's
they,
true.
of course, I'm sure they were doing this on a budget and trying to cover the price of Billy Sheehan and Ray Luzier.
Right.
But you know,
But you know, but Rat Pack does stuff with Billy Sheehan and Ray Luzier. So
mhm.
they've got some of their other bands too that they're doing. So I'm sure they were around the same studio. And they were just there and they were like, hey, how about playing some of these songs? It'll help this
Yeah,
guy.
well, I'm sure they did that. But like you say, this guy, he was heard, you know, in a bar, and
Mhm.
you know, and the guy decided, you know, well, hey man, we need to get you out there. So I'm sure they just threw him in there. They
Yeah.
probably did this in 2 or 3 days.
And I want to say that he opened up for Winery Dogs at some point,
He might have,
and
yeah.
that's probably where another Billy Sheehan connection is. So this next song here, man, you might as well go ahead and call Blake Shelton, tell him to re-record this one. You know, it's called White
Yeah,
Trash
oh
Princess.
my God, that I couldn't
Dude,
stand the lyrics in this song.
that princess. It's like,
I
come on,
know I couldn't
you know?
stand it. It's like, you know, trailer park trash and all that.
Dude,
It's come on, man.
goes back to the word thing again, right? There's a line in there where he says she was wearing a husband beater, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, man. And then she's like, come and rock my trailer. It's a double wide. I'm like, come on, man. Seriously.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay. I mean, you got a lot of people out there right now because of the COVID shit that have lost their homes and stuff because they
Yeah.
couldn't work and everything. And they're going to wind up having to live in places like that. And when you start putting out stuff like this,
Yeah.
you're talking to these people because that's where they're going to be living for a while until they can move them back up again, you know? And
Yeah.
it's just, it's a, I just think it's bad timing more so than anything else. You know, I just think it's a timing thing.
I
But the
I
lyrics
don't
to me,
know. I don't know that I would ever put out a song called
white
White
trash.
Trash Princess. And I
Right.
surely wouldn't be talking about redneck trailer parks.
Well, it puts you on the wrong side of the tracks, honestly. You know, you're not able to walk down the middle of the road at that point. You
Yeah.
know, and I mean,
But it's a dumb song that would be a big hit. I'm telling you, this is the stupidest song that you'll probably everybody would love it. And it's like,
yeah,
really? I mean,
well,
but
back
that's
in
what happens, right?
yeah,
So,
back in the old days when you had the outlaw country and rock, yeah, you
yeah,
know.
maybe.
Today, again, I think this is a song that's about probably 30 years too late.
But it fits right along with Blake Shelton's, chew tobacco spit crap. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
So
Yeah.
that's why
Well,
I'm saying call Blake Shelton. There's one for him.
finger popping shit, you know.
Yeah.
I can't
Which, by
stand
the
it.
way, 13, 14, and 15 are all add-ons. The original record was only supposed to stop at Blues Child.
Right,
So
12.
now we got the 3 extras: White Trailer Princess, or whatever, White Trash
White
Princess,
trash
whatever the heck
princess.
it's called.
Rebel Highway.
Rebel Highway, which you got Billy and Ray back on again, which you can tell because the rhythm section's so good, right? And
I
it's a good
liked the
song.
song. I
But
liked the song.
yeah, me too. And you know what I really liked about it? It had an organ finally.
Right.
Finally got an organ in there, right?
Yep.
But it really sounded familiar to me, man. There was some, it sounded like another song, especially when they started doing the raise your hands and sing with me type thing. I don't know if it was Poison or something, but there's another song that has this chorus in it. And I've heard this chorus before. Even when they start and break it down, they're all singing, and I just couldn't. I tried to go back and try to figure out what song it was, and I couldn't do it. But I know
Well,
there's one out there
all
that this
those
is.
all those big rocker bands, Journey does it, Toto does it,
Yeah,
you know. I
yeah.
mean, stand up there, it gives the lead singer a break for some reason. It's like, so he just
Yeah.
holds them out there, go, oh yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
and I hate that shit, man. You know, I paid to come hear you sing. I didn't come to hear the crowd chant, you know.
I surely don't want to hear me sing.
In fact, could have done that at home in the bathroom.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then number 15, we get another version of Darkest Before Dawn, but it's extended, which really is only like a minute longer. I don't really understand it, but whatever. Back on Rebel Highway though, I don't know if you listened to the very end of it, but Ray is killing that snare at the end of it.
Yeah.
You gotta listen, it's fading out, man, and he is just
Oh, I know. I heard that. Yeah, it was kind of, it carried on, you know, hearing it on my system here. I thought it got a little redundant there towards the end because it went on for quite a while.
It did, man. It was like, man, he is just killing that snare. It was almost like he was trying to break the head. Like, I'm gonna see if I can break the head on this snare.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was like, it was a cool lick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was definitely going on for a while.
Yeah, I might have to listen to it again to figure out what he was doing. You know,
Yeah, he was trying to break the daggone head. I'm telling you.
what rudiment approach he was coming to with it. Yeah.
So now I'm going to go ahead and break this thing down to what I liked and what I didn't like. So I think I'll do the bad first, right? The solos he did, they didn't always fit the song. I felt like he tried to do too much every time. You know, there's a lot of double hammer stuff that goes on way too long. Sometimes it was sounding like pieces of solo that he stuck in there, and it didn't play well with the song a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just didn't, you know, it's not helping the song. It's just a solo in there, you know. I don't know. It just, some of the songs just didn't fit to me. I thought he had some decent songs, but the words, man, I just couldn't handle it. It was like out of the 15, maybe 3 of them had decent words. The rest of them were childish and amateur, and I just didn't like the words at all, you know?
Right.
There wasn't a whole lot of differences in the record. I think it was kind of similar every song, same like you talked about earlier. The formula didn't change much. There was not a lot of different changes in his sound.
Right.
So I mean, I had a hard time with some of that, you know. Now the good stuff I'll say was his voice. Oh, he's got a good raspy voice. I like that.
Yeah.
He's a great guitarist. I think the record was recorded decent. And I like some of the times when he left spaces in the songs. I felt like people don't do that enough. You don't let songs breathe. And he had a lot of that where he was breathing, you know?
Yep. Yep. Well, I mean, yeah, he's, I'm sure he's a well seasoned musician.
Yeah.
I do believe, though, that, and honestly believe he wrote the lyrics to all these songs.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's what the problem is, too.
Yeah.
He had
like he wrote it when he was still in high school.
Yeah, he had some shiners on here. I mean, there were
Yeah.
I would say 4 or 5 at least that stuck out that were worthy, but there were some of them too that I just felt like were verbally challenged.
Yep.
And a little bit suspect in subject matter. You know, I mean, I know blues is about drinking and womanizing and stuff like that, but let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Let's not drag anybody's daughter into it and stuff, you know. I mean,
that one got you the most, didn't it?
Well, I mean, when I hear that kind of stuff, man, it's like, come on, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a subject we can cover off camera, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. it kind of reminds you a little bit of your mama don't dance, your daddy don't rock and roll, right? Or something like
Right.
that. Or what was the one where he says, don't you leave my daughter alone? What song was that? Better leave my daughter alone. I don't remember.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
but anyways, yeah, I mean, again, I didn't hate the record. It was a fun
No,
record. You know, it was listenable. I didn't have time. It wasn't like somewhere I just didn't want to get through it. I
yeah,
mean, I enjoyed listening to it. I had to tune out the vocals, not the vocals, but the words for sure. I
right,
just had to let them be what they were
right,
and listen more to the music on this one because I just didn't like the lyrical. I just didn't like his lyrics. I just don't like them. Uh,
right, right.
uh, I, really, I did like a handful of songs on here. I thought they were really good, and I would probably listen to some of these songs again. Some of
Yeah,
these songs I will probably not ever want to hear again because of the lyrics. But I thought the guy was a damn good guitar player, though, man.
he is. He's a good guitar player. And I gotta say, for the most part, every one of these songs could be worked into some band set to where they're thrown in there
Yeah,
for a good time rocker, that you don't really have to think about. And
it's
90% of the people in a live situation are not gonna really
they're not.
they're not gonna hear the words.
I know people that don't even listen to lyrics. They just
Oh, I
like
know.
the songs.
I know.
They don't even care about the lyrics. So
Right.
but what you just said, it is what this record is. It's a good time rocker.
Yeah. Well, it's Roadhouse music, man.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what it is.
good time record. So I'm not going to kill this one because I did like a lot of it, and I thought it had great players.
Yeah.
So I'm giving it a 7-1. You know, that's
Oh, yeah.
still kind of up there, 7-1.
Yeah.
If it was
I think
just lyrical, I would have probably went 4.
well,
But
for production and musicianship,
yeah,
I'm gonna stick right in there with a 7 too.
yeah,
I I think a 7. I think that's a good place for it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
do think that lyrically he needs to work on some of that stuff, or maybe start co-writing with somebody else
yeah,
to have some self-editing happening. I mean, there are ways of putting lyrics out there that mean the same thing, but
yeah.
don't strike you as being too simple or
Right.
too much on to the point. You know what I'm
Too
saying?
amateur. Yeah, mature it up a little bit, I think, and it would be good. I think live, this guy probably rips it apart.
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
mean, I bet you live, it's a whole different animal, you know.
I'm sure it is.
I'd
I'm sure
love
it
to
is.
see that. I'd love to
Yeah,
see him live. Hopefully he comes with somebody good and I
yeah,
can catch him.
yeah.
So anyway, we'll wrap it up. Anthony Gomes, High Voltage Blues album cover looks like this.
You
I got
won't
to give
be
him a 1 on just the cover too, man. You get a point for the cover because it's a cool cover.
Well, you won't be disappointed if you pick it up. I
No,
promise you that. And believe me, mix wise and everything coming through this system, my God, the I forgot to turn my system down. So when the first song hit, it was like pounding me in the chest. And I'm like, yeah, there you go.
yeah, and it was mixed and mastered by Chris Collier, which I know we've heard his stuff before somewhere
Yeah.
too. And I went digging trying to find him, and I couldn't remember what we did that he mixed in before, but I know I've seen his name pop up.
I
So
think we need to keep a whiteboard and write down the names
I
of
think we do too.
the categories, put some
Yeah, because
categories on.
yeah, and we could just, I know we've run across a lot of these names in several CDs that we do, and it's like, man, that's why it sounded so good because it had, Chris mixing and mastering on it. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, all right, well, we'll leave it at that. Anthony Gomes, I gave it a 7-1. Mike gave it a 7. And until next time, y'all stay safe.
Well, and before we part company, I just want everybody to just remember we've lost a lot of musicians this year, and
For
it's a
sure.
very young, we're not even past January yet.
Man, we lost Jeff Beck, man. Come
Yeah,
on.
Jeff Beck, David Crosby. I mean, right at the heart of the movements. I mean, both of these guys were instrumental in guiding music to where it is today.
I mean,
And
we've lost 2 good guitar gods in the past year.
oh my God,
Eddie Van Halen and Jeff Beck,
yep,
so
yeah. And there's been, matter of fact, we lost Randy Bachman's brother, Bachman Turner Overdrive. He
sure
passed
did.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was back about the 10th of January, I believe. And there's been, I can't even got last night. For some reason, I sat on YouTube and I watched for the past year from 2022 till now of how many people we've lost,
Yeah.
celebrity wise, and a big majority of them are musicians.
Yeah. So the bottom line is you need to go out there and see these guys.
Yes.
I mean, if they're still running around and touring, you got to go see them, man, because who knows when you won't be able to see them again.
Yep.
You know, so,
Yep.
so
And
get
the
out
thing
there and
is,
listen to some live music, you know.
and the story is too that I think the big thing that's sticking out with the David Crosby thing is you got to let bygones be bygones, man. I mean, David Crosby was the heart of Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah.
Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Yep.
And he was a jerk. He
Yep.
made enemies out of all his brothers in that band.
Yeah.
And that's why they never got back together. And unfortunately, I think we lost out on a lot of major music because of it.
Yeah, for sure.
But they, each and every one of them, had nothing but nice things to say about him in the end.
That's right. I mean, of course.
Well,
here's a toast to all.
Yep, you got to bury that hatchet, and it's better to do it when people are still around. So peace out.
And here's to Keith Richards.
Yes.
Because he ain't going nowhere.
But peace out and listen to the music.